Om Devaki Nandanaya Vitmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Krishna Prachodayat.
Om Anyana Timarandasya Yananjala Shalakaya Chakshulun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So welcome, Swami. It's a real honor to have you here. Now, most of you who joined have seen Swami Keshava like everywhere. If you tune into the temple, if you've been at Sri Pitanilaya, it seems like this guy is everywhere. So I wanted to get his official title correct for those of you who aren't sure. So he's in charge of international and the Sri Pitanilaya Temple, rituals, the Saints Museum, where Guruji has been collecting artifacts of saints, and the Youth Sangha. So barely a youth himself. He's already... Now, are you the youngest Swami in the organization?
Yes.
Yes.
For now.
For now, yeah. So I'm just going to let you jump in because you met Guruji at such a young age, you and your identical twin brother. So why don't you give us a little retro on how this all happened?
Okay. So good day, everybody. I was thinking this was for Canadian, but I see a lot of...
No, it's an international.
Okay, I was in the wrong impression. Well, I see a lot of familiar faces. It's amazing. Okay, so I don't know where to start. Do you guys want to ask something and I'm gonna start like that, or?
Well, so where are you from? Like, where did this start? Where were you born?
I don't remember. No, so no, I'm from Germany originally. I was born in Germany and I never lived anywhere else than Germany. What to say? I met Guruji in 2002. I was, I think, 10 years old at the time, and yeah, somehow the way that I met Guruji, maybe I can share that one. Maybe it's not as, how to say, I think for many people, many devotees that I've heard stories from how they've met Guruji, it's a very life-changing scenario and situation. Like everything is upside down, and right, for me it was not actually in that way. For me it was something very natural somehow, right? Like I felt like I've always somehow known him in a way, so it was not like kaboom and like everything is different in my life. Well, maybe I can start in the beginning. So because I had an amazing family to grow up in. To be honest, I had amazing parents, amazing siblings, but at the time we had a bit of some problems in our family, and my dad was always very, very stressed when he came home from work, etc. And it was a little bit difficult situation, and so my mom started to pray for help. We weren't like, I grew up in a Christian family, but it wasn't like super religious, let's put it that way, right? But Christian background somehow. And so she started praying. She wasn't really praying to anybody like specific, not like specifically Jesus or a saint or anything. She just somehow to God. And some weeks later, she went to our doctor, and she was sitting in the waiting room, and there was this picture of this really beautiful young brown guy, I would say Indian brown guy. And the whole time when she was waiting in the waiting room, she just could not look away from this picture. It was so captivating. And so when she went in, she asked the doctor, like, who is this guy on the picture? And so he told her, like, this is like very young spiritual master from Mauritius and etc. And she was like, oh yeah, he's doing an event next weekend. He's doing a Yagna, whatever that was, in like 2 hours from where we lived, which is actually like quite close to here, to Springen. And so he said, yeah, I'm going there. Why you don't join? Yeah, there's nothing to lose, right? So she was like, okay, sure. And so she joined, and my brother went also. I could not go, unfortunately, because I was busy. I had football duties, soccer duties, which is, of course, very important. And well, got to be honest. And so I remember actually, so my brother and my mom, they went to the Yagna, and I remember the first, what my brother told me from how he met Guruji is actually quite funny, because he called me later in the day and he said, you know what, this guy is really cool. I really like him. Because how he explained it is that when they arrived, it was around Easter time. It was a nice weather, and they were walking down from the car park, and they saw this guy standing in a long, dark blue, shiny robes. His back was towards them, and he was standing in front of the shop, long hair, right? And so when they were coming closer, he turned around, like with flying hair, and he was wearing reflective dark blue sunglasses matching to the robes. And Pankaj was like, this guy's got style. I like him. That was the first time how Guruji, how Pankaj saw Guruji. And if you know Pankaj, he's a designer, right? He likes like this visually and stuff, everything always. And that was like the first way on how Guruji was, catching. Guruji always knows how to catch people, right? And yeah, so they participated in the Yagna, and it was nice, but it wasn't anything like too amazing or too overwhelming, or right. And at the end of the Yagna, there was a lady walking around giving interviews. The Guruji used to give interviews, private interviews, back in the day. That was actually before he started giving darshans, right? So actually, the only thing I was doing was sometimes like these, like yagnas, and many interviews for people. And so she asked my mom, like, "Do you want an interview?" And she said, "No, it's okay. We had this fire thing, so it was okay." So she came a second time. She's like, "You want an interview?" And my mom was like, No, it's okay. So later she came a third time, like, "Do you want an interview? We have free spaces. You want an interview next weekend?" And my mom was like, "Well, he asked me 3 times, um, so I'm just gonna say yeah." So she actually made an appointment for the whole family the weekend later, and so the weekend later, the whole family, we went. I don't know how she managed to get my dad to go, but I guess family trip is also nice. So it was like a 2-hour trip, 2-hour drive with a car, which I know for Americans that's nothing, right? It's like a trip to the supermarket. For us, it's actually not that close. And yeah, so we drive and we get to the address that we were given for the interview, and it's closed. There's nobody there. Right? It was like a music school, and there was nobody there. Right? My dad is already getting like annoyed, to say the least. Right? You drive 2 hours, nobody there, blah, blah. And so we called the phone number that we had, and they said, "Oh yeah, sorry, everybody else for the day canceled. So we must have forgotten to tell you guys that it's not happening because canceled." And so we're like, okay, what to do? I mean, so we went to have some lunch, and like 20 minutes later, we got a phone call back, and he said, "Oh, I asked Guruji. He said you guys can come by the house where he's staying, and he will do interviews for you." And so we went to the house, and we were coming. We went in the room where we were waiting for Guruji to come. And I remember it was just one chair for him, two for my parents opposite of him, And then there was just a bed by the side. So the kids, the three of us, were sitting on the bed, and the door was opposite the bed. And so that was like, for me, it was the first time when I met Guruji, is when Guruji just came in the door. He didn't even look at my parents. He just came in straight to us, to the kids, and he was like, so cute. And so he was just playing around with us for a minute or two. And then he sat down and spoke to my parents for quite a long time. I don't really understand what they were talking about. I didn't speak English back then. It was just like about, life and life questions and job and this kind of things. And I remember as we were leaving, actually, I remember it was the first or second time, Guruji materialized a pendant for my brother and me. And he brought us to his room, like around the corner. So he was wearing slippers. And as he was going into his room, he took the slippers off, and it was like full of white powder. And as he was walking into his room, there was like steps of white footprints, and it was not getting less. It was like the same like thickness of powder. Like he was stepping, and then he was showing us a picture of Shirdi Sai, which he always loved a lot. It was like one of his closest saints until now, right? That he always loved. And so he was showing us this picture of Shirdi Sai, and you could actually not see anything. You could see like the eyes, basically, maybe a little bit from the face, because everything else was just white in Vibhuti. And I remember he at the time he was starting to learn German. He was having this like computer learning system for German. And he was trying to explain to us who Shirdi Sai is and what Vibhuti is in German. That was quite fun, because he just started to learn. It was quite interesting. Yeah, that was my first meeting with Guruji. And honestly, at that time and at age, I mean, we were already vegetarians maybe for 2 years. My parents had read a couple of books about Shirdi Satya Sai. And somehow it was, for me at that time and age, I would say it was not like I said, a feeling of like huge change, right? It was more like, and I didn't think of Guruji as a spiritual master and like a guru and whatever. It was more like a really nice person, right? Obviously there was like this like exotic thing of like, spiritual master and from India, Mauritius and everything, but it was not so like present, right? He was just a really like interesting, nice person. And so actually I don't even remember what the next step were, to be honest, because it just it was very smooth somehow, like we met him again maybe a couple weeks later, and maybe a few less weeks later, and then every month, every 2 weeks. But then the distances between seeing him became closer and closer as much as it was possible to see him when he was around. And that's, I guess, how it went the first 2 years maybe. And he started to do the first darshans. So we helped to organize the first darshans, and we were looking for the first ashram in Stephansdorf back then. And so everything somehow just developed over time and very smoothly. And for me, I always had thinking back, I feel actually very grateful and very privileged, actually, because I always felt from the very first moment that I was always part of his family in that sense. Like I never felt like I'm outside, or like I always felt like he welcomed me with open arms. And that's something
Because I've even seen a picture of you and your brother on stage with him, right? I think you were doing puja to him at some event, and you were very young.
I mean,
there's pictures of you guys with your short hair, and
maybe,
you
probably.
couldn't have been.
If you have, feel free to send me. I don't have so many pictures all the time.
Okay. Well, and but also in some of your satsangs, you've mentioned how you became so enthralled with rituals that Guruji even had to tell you to back off a bit because you were going to school and yet you were doing a huge amount of sadhana, right? For you.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the very first, let's say, spiritual practice Guruji taught us was actually Surya Namaskar. That was before anything else. Actually, he taught us Surya Namaskar, and so we were doing Surya Namaskar almost daily, actually, with my parents. And yeah, the whole puja thing, it kind of just started only around, I guess, 2005, like when we opened the ashram in the temple. Before there was not really anything. Obviously, there was the yagna and stuff that we maybe attended here and there, but to be able to do it yourself kind of just started around that time.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know. For me, it was something that I always felt naturally very drawn to the rituals and worshiping Krishna, especially. Even if around that time there was no talk yet about Ishtadev and whatever. For me, it was always Krishna, somehow the one that I always felt drawn to. And some of this chanting the mantras, singing the prayers was always something that just came very natural to me. Obviously, I had the grace to actually grow up in a little ashram myself, because my parents, my brother, my sister, and me were literally like a small ashram of 5 people. Right? At some point, all of us were brahmachari again. At some point, eventually. And I remember even in the very beginning, it was very beautiful to, like when we started to do the temple prayers in the ashram, we created like the first prayer book and had a set of prayers that we would do every morning. You had evening prayers, and we would actually always try to mimic what we do in the ashram, right? So we started to chant like the Guru Stotam, which was actually like a huge thing back then. Right? It was like, now it's like the first little start of the prayer, right? In the beginning, it was like a huge prayer. So we started to do that, like the Guru Stotam, and we really tried to learn it like as a family, right? As a teamwork, right? Because it was very like blah, blah, very difficult, and we were like splitting up the verses, and like each one was responsible to practice 2 verses very well, so that you can lead everybody else in that 2 verses, and then it would go like that, so we can manage the whole.
That's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to do it.
And it was really beautiful, actually, in that way. Same thing we did with the Narasimha prayer, Narasimha Kavacham, Hanuman Chalisa later on when it came. And then started also the puja, which I always like to do it and enjoy to do it from the beginning. Yeah, and I guess it just over time developed that is really deep love for the rituals. I started to do it almost immediately, daily, and I just enjoyed to do it. I didn't even think about. I just got absorbed somehow in doing it, and I wanted to learn more and more, and especially then a group of people. Once the first swamis were initiated, and some other prabhus from the ashram, they were chosen to go to London for 2 weeks to learn the rituals the way that we do it right now. It was quite different between 2005 and 2008. And so 2008, there was a group of guys who went to London to do a training with a South Indian priest.
Wow.
And so especially after that, I really wanted to learn the stuff, learn everything, because there was a lot more. Like before, it was just like a simple abhishekam, really, and very like a kind of like a self-made version. I wouldn't say like self-made, but it was like very simplified yagna. Literally, the yagna manual that we used to follow was a DIN A4 page.
Oh.
It was like super simple, right? And so I always had this like urge to learn more and practice more and chant more, and like it became, like I said, like actually you said, it became somewhat like an obsession to do the perfect prayer, to do the perfect puja, to do perfect pronunciation, and it became so much at a certain point like even ask Guruji, can I learn this mudras? Can I use the Gayatri mudras? Can I learn, anything to do with prayers? That's why even if nobody wanted to do it at that time, I even started to do stuff like Purusha Suktam, Narayana Suktam, Vishnu Sahasranam, like almost every day.
Yeah.
And I remember at a certain time, it was actually around that time when Guruji told me to do less.
How old were you, do you think?
Huh?
How old were you? Maybe a teenager at that point?
Well, I had already, at that point I was already moved here. So I moved to the ashram 2009. So I was 16, 17.
So fresh out of school?
No, I was still in school. I finished school here.
Oh,
2012.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a funny thing somehow because the year before, 2008, I asked Guruji, can I come to the ashram? Like we just bought Springen, was very new. We were still living in the village down in a house. And I asked Guruji, like, can I move here? And Guruji said no. And but he told my brother to move here. And my brother actually didn't want. But he told him that my brother moved here without me. And then basically 1 year later, because for my brother, it didn't make any sense because he had only 1 year left of the school that he was doing. So it didn't make any sense to move for that 1 year. But anyway, Guruji said, so he moved here and I stayed at home. And then the year later, my brother finished school here. So he moved back to study for 3 years. And I moved to Springen to school here the last 3 years. So actually in the next year, I like always I went for the 6 weeks summer holidays. I came to Springen to do seva, and there was no other seva than construction at that time. There was like registration thing. I literally just came and I said, okay, I'll take this room because like it was amazing because there wasn't even any electricity right at that point. There was running water, but it was only cold. There wasn't warm water. And I remember making my tilak in the mornings in the bathroom with a flashlight. It was an amazing time, to be honest. It was really, really special in its own way. And yeah, so anyway, in the next summer, I came for my summer holidays with the intention to stay. And I actually didn't even tell Guruji. I was just like, okay, I'm moving here. And when my summer holidays were finishing, I already had registered for the school actually, officially. So actually in that summer, I only had 2 weeks of summer holidays because in every state in Germany, it starts and ends in a different time. And when I came, I saw Guruji at some point, and after a while, he asked like, oh, so you're staying here now? And it's like, yes, Guruji. And he was like, oh, okay. And so I stayed, right? So I kind of just invited myself. Because the year before he said no, so I didn't want to ask Guruji, can I stay? So I just said, yes, I'm staying. And I guess it was okay. So yeah, and then, yeah, it was also that around 2008, obviously it was a little bit difficult time around here. Many people left Guruji, and there wasn't many people who stayed to look after the temple and actually, to be honest, wanted to look after the temple and the deities.
Wow.
So because I just loved it so much, it just kind of fell into my hands. It's not that I was responsible for it. I was just the one who's doing the most of the pujas, I would say. And this also like around the time when, because Krishna Ladu Gopal would have to be brought to bed every night at 9 o'clock at that time. I think it was 9 o'clock. And so I started to do that. In the beginning, it was just the pujaris for the day who was responsible, and as over time, people kept asking me to replace them. So it just naturally ended up just being me every day, which was to be honest, one of the biggest blessings for me, because it was just the most favorite thing for me to do in every day.
I think you were maybe taking care of a temple in India in a past life, because such a natural for you, right?
Maybe. I don't know. Guruji often said, or some people often told me, I sound very South Indian when I chant. And I was like, I've never been to South India. I don't know. I'm just listening, because for me, it's like the way I learned a lot of the suktams and chants is not with a manual. I just listened to recordings from priests chanting or whatever, and I just literally just listened, and at some point I started chanting along. And so at some point when I added the lyrics, I actually got sometimes a little bit confused. Because actually for me, that was always a good way to learn, to listen.
And that's the traditional way, right?
Yes, actually, this is how they learned when they went to South India, to London, to learn from this priest. There was no manuals, there was no anything. Literally, the priest would sit in the front, he would chant something, and you chant back, chant, repeat, chant, repeat. There was no manual, right, at that time. So after that training, all the manuals just had to obviously they were recording everything, so they just had to somehow get the manuals together. And so they're also to get the words right, the mantras, the Sanskrit proper. Somehow it's been a development over the past 12, 13 years.
Well, it's pretty astonishing for a Western temple to be so in depth. Like, I'm sure on a world stage, Sri Pita Nalaya is probably at the top, because it's hard to get people dedicated enough to do that much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's not so many huge temples, obviously, temples in Europe itself, but of course there are some temples which obviously would be in some ways more traditional than ours. Like there's one very big Kamakshi Amman temple in north of Germany, in Hamm, which is run by South Indian priests. So they actually come from India and to serve in the temple as a job. Right? Like they learn in India, and they come to that place. They're invited to that place as a job, so to speak, to do that as a priest. Right. But of course, I think the way that Guruji set it up also here is not that we don't serve in the temple as a job, right? In that sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, for them it's probably not the same. Also, for them it's worship to God, also obviously. But like for us, it's really Guruji has set everything up in the way that it's the heart of our not the ashram itself, but the heart of our life in itself. Right? I feel like Guruji is, because that's something I've felt a lot since the inauguration of the new temple, right? Because before it was a lot smaller, it was a lot easier in many ways. There was a lot less people, though there was many pujaris like Prabhu's Mataji's, switching the days, etc. But it was not even comparable to how it became from one day to the next, literally from one day to the next, right? 2018. And even if I try to prepare myself, if I try to think like what's going to happen, what he's going to ask for, because you can't really plan with Guruji ahead. He didn't say anything really like how it's going to be, right? I just try to prepare for the worst or for the best, right? In that sense.
Yeah. And I heard that even Narasimha at the last minute went up front. He was supposed to have been at the back.
Well, that changed like 15 times at least during the last 2 months of the temple. At some point there was Narasimha. First it was Narasimha, then it was Krishna in the middle. Then Narasimha went to the back where Radha Durga is now, and then like it came back in the front again, but where Radha Krishna is now, and
Those are heavy.
Especially when it gets to the final touches of the temple. Guruji, like he came every day and he was painting and helping and saying this goes here, this goes there, this goes whatever.
Wow.
Like when he gets into that creative mood, like many things start moving and he changes just like this, like this would be nice, this would be nice, this would be nice, and then in the end it becomes amazing. because of the way Guruji does and arranges everything. Because actually the majority of the altar, like the gold mandir and the wooden carvings, only came 5 days before the inauguration. Like everything,
wow.
you know how it is sometimes when things come from India. And it was incredible how nothing was even close to being ready. Like not even close, like nothing. And like within like 3-4 days, it was just like 24-hour working day and night. Everything just became like ready.
I can't
And like
imagine, yeah.
it's amazing
Now
to see how everybody just working with their whole heart, you know. And this
now the one thing that fascinates me is the alankaram, you know, the dressing of the deities. Did Guruji have to teach you all how to do the, you know, the pleating and everything, or?
I mean, to varying degrees, I would say. I supported the pujaris a lot, in trying to, because also I didn't know who is going to be pujari for who and what before. like some I kind of knew, like maybe 2 days before. Some just found out like on the day. They're like, we need more pujaris here. Radha Krishna, you, Lakshmi, right? Somehow. So it went like this somehow. And so it's just like, especially obviously the first few days were quite stressful because everything was new and busy and everything. But the first couple of months and maybe a year, I think was a learning process, I would say. Also the deities to varying degrees, because Guruji, because everybody's also different. Like everybody has different, like I'm somebody who really enjoys decorating and dressing, and like not everybody has an eye for
Right.
Right. So everybody is different, and every deity is in itself very special and unique in their style. Like I often spoke about that, like in the beginning, because I'm so used to dressing and like engaging in like Radha Krishna and their unique style. In the beginning, it was very difficult for me to adjust to Narasimha's style. Like because I dressed him with, like, I put decorations on his face, and like, you know, I dressed him the way that I thought he looked really nice. Like, and then
Yeah.
you know, every day, and that's what I mean, like with a working progress or learning progress over time, is that Guruji just let us do or what we feel and what we think is best. And
Oh, he did.
yeah, he just like, and then what always happens is that whenever he comes to the temple, whether it was in the evening or whether it was at some point during the day, he would call you and be like just shouting at you for doing this wrong and that wrong, and don't dress him like this, and like this over, I would say, especially the first year. Obviously not every day, but like over, you know, at times, you would get your lessons, you would learn your lessons, you would learn how, and for me that's a very important point somehow, is that not, of course it's about dressing the deity and feeling how the deity wants to be dressed, right? Because actually the deity tells you if it's how they want it or not, right? But at the same time, of course, it's also your own feeling, which is kind of a balance to get, right? And at the same time, we are not dressing them, I'm not dressing them how I want to dress him, but I'm dressing him how I think Guruji would like them to be dressed, right? And that, for me, that is really a huge blessing that we have Guruji, because he knows how Nrsimhadeva wants to be dressed. He knows how Radha Krishna want to be dressed.
Right.
As much as I can try to follow my intuition and my feeling and listen to him, to Nrsimhadeva, for them, Radha Krishna, for example, I can still, it's sometimes difficult to put my own personality, let's say, out of it, right? And so it's amazing that we have Guruji, who is able to like just correct us and tell us, no, this is how he likes it, this is how she likes it, right? And so it happens very often that he just goes around when you know, for Aarti or during the day, he pays his respects. And it's amazing to see how Guruji, for him, it's not just murtis, right? For him, it's literally their life. And so you
Right.
can see that every single time when he walks past them, he talks to them, he listens to them, and he has an exchange with them. And he really knows how everyone serves them, how the pujari, not
Wow.
physically what they do, but like how they take, how they're focused. And so in that sense, he always corrects, like even to the
Yeah.
smallest of details. And of course, that is, like I said, different deities to different degrees. Um, like especially with Radha Krishna,
Mhm.
he's super stingy. No, not
Ah,
stingy, that's the word. Like very picky,
right.
right? Very, very picky in, especially Radha, but Krishna also, like how she likes the veil and how she likes the
Mm.
nose ring and the dots on the forehead. Not too much, not too little, not too. You can
Ah,
put a nose ring for Krishna, but not too often. Only sometimes. Like these, like the way that Radha's wearing has her hair, like sometimes curly and not too curly, like not too open. It can be a little bit open, can be one strand down, but not open because that's not good, right? So it's very um, amazing to see how through him we get to learn what the deity likes.
mm. Because she's always meticulous. Like I've noticed sometimes she's holding a purse, you know, sometimes she, like, it's amazing, the details. And to have a bunch of Prabhus doing it, like that really is something. It's not like you grew up playing with Barbie dolls, right?
No?
So for you, learning to dress deities is quite something. And I remember in the rituals training, you gave us a spectacular tour of the behind the scenes. Like it's a massive dressing room that you have.
Well, it's running out of space, but yeah, running out of space. But
Now, are you laying out the clothes for all the pujaris each
yeah,
day, or you
yeah,
are,
yeah,
because they're color coordinated and
yeah. So I'm preparing the clothes and the jewelry, especially for all the deities, and we're changing 38 deities daily. And then of course some days, like on Fridays we change Gayatri and Kamakshi, only changed once a week on Fridays, and Ram Darbar and Saraswati only change on Sundays, right? So they
oh,
change
okay.
once a week, and Rukmini Pandrenga only on Sundays also.
Mm,
Shiri on Thursdays. So there's some specific ones which are once a week, but most
right.
deities are every day. Yeah, so I prepare the clothes every day, and yeah, for me it's like to prepare the jewelry, especially in the clothes. Like Guruji often really made it clear, actually, is that, and for me that's something that I've always known because I've read it many times in different, saint stories and scriptures and traditional rules about puja, is that actually the items that you use for the deity, for the puja, the clothes, the jewelry, is actually, there's no difference to the deity itself. They are actually the
Oh, I
same
see.
vibration of the deity. Like there's one story which I like a lot from Lalita Saki. I don't know if you know her. It's a very amazing
No,
saint.
no.
Do you guys know Radha Ramcharan Das? Is the Kanaka does nodding, which was very good. He's a musician. Radha Ramcharan Das is it's an amazing story. If you want, it's maybe too long to tell the story.
No,
But
it's great.
he was the saint that started chanting Bhajanita Gaur Radhesham Chapari Krishna Hari Ram. Yeah, the mantra that I was going to say sing, that we used to sing in the temple every day,
Mm.
right? And one of his he had many amazing disciples, actually. They're all in the Saints of Bengal book. But one of them is Lalita Saki, who she was one of his closest disciples, and she was not the only one, but she was one of the main cooks that used to cook for him. She was actually a man. Her name was Jayagopal, and at a certain point, she became Lalita Saki through the grace of her guru. She got the
Ah,
grace to be always in the Saki Bhav. right? So Saki is the best friend of Radharani, right?
Mhm.
Saki is the friends of Radha. And so she got a sari from her guru, Radharam Charan Das. And so he said she always has to wear the sari. And so from that point, through the grace of another saint, from the blessing of another saint, she had that Saki bhav. Right? So throughout the rest of her life, she was continuously in that bhav, in that mood
Oh, wow.
of a friend of Radha. And yes, so like I said, her main seva was to cook and some other chores around the ashram. And one of the days she was cleaning the puja items. And one of the puja pots, when she was cleaning, was quite close to her foot. Right? And instantly she felt like a huge pain in her foot. And so for days she was in bed, in pain, and she couldn't do her seva, right? And she was, because it came out of nothing. She had no idea where it came from and why it was. After a few days, like they were asking even the guru, like, can you have a look at her? Can you help her? And he was completely ignoring her. Like he didn't worry, he didn't bother at all. And so eventually they asked him, like, please, can you help her? She's like really in a lot of pain and stuff. And so he said, tell her, I will help her, but she has to figure out herself what she did wrong. She will know.
Oh.
So when they told her, she started to reflect, and then she realized that when the pain started, that she was washing the puja items, and there was this puja pot that was close to her feet, and she realized that actually, because the puja items are the same than the deity, it's like it's a prat, it's an offense to have the deity
Right.
or an item that is close to your feet, right? And the moment she realized her mistake, the pain went away. Right? So it's amazing to see how, and that story is that how special these items are, and it's something that I can really feel in the puja items, in the clothes, in the jewelry. And of course, like I said, I do like a lot, well, I wouldn't say this blingy stuff, but like
You say
jewelry,
bling.
colors and color combinations and decorations and combinations and this kind of thing. So obviously I have to work with what we have, with the sets that we have that Guruji has chosen and bought. But the nice thing is that we also have a lot of veils and saris. And so most of the time, as you probably notice, that we don't use most of the set, like the skirt or the dhoti, for example, for Radha Krishna, which is pre-made. We usually just use the tops for Radha Durga, for Lakshmi, for Narasimha, Radha Krishna.
Oh.
And so we just use the tops, and then we use saris to improvise. Yeah, so even Nrsingadev and Krishna, they always wear saris. Yeah, we just try to make it look like a dhoti, but it's actually a sari. And so it's nice because there's a lot more possibility to rotate, right? Because there's not like this sari is only for Radha, this only for Krishna, this only, it's for everybody. And so I always try to keep in my head somehow which one I use for Radha Durga, so I don't use it the next time for her. I use it for somebody else. So it doesn't get boring for them, doesn't get boring for the pujaris. So we have as much rotation and different combinations as possible.
Well, you do a beautiful job. Like I do my morning puja with the replay of the morning prayers because I'm 8 hours behind you guys. And it's just such a thrill every time the curtain opens, right? To see what you guys have done and how beautiful everyone is. So
yeah, it's amazing.
I'm so grateful that you started broadcasting all of that, the evening arti. It doesn't make you, I'm a long way away and it doesn't feel like that because I get to watch you guys every day. It's really been spectacular.
Yeah, thanks to Guruji.
Yeah. Now you just finished the Youth Sangha, didn't you? Like, it's such brilliant programming, right? Because you're just out of being a youth, right? Like you're the perfect one to be running that program.
All already, actually, officially.
Well, I remember I was there last summer when the Youth Sangha was going on, and every once in a while I'd be sitting on my balcony, you know, reading something, and then all of you guys would go screaming past, and it was hilarious. You know, you would have them all doing some kind of wild stunt and giving them vegan ice cream. Did you put that program together, or did Guruji? How did that come to be?
Yeah, I always try to do a little bit something different every year, but in the end it's very similar. Obviously, also there's only that many things we can do.
Right.
This year we tried to do to go through the 9 forms of bhakti and do activities along the 9 forms of bhakti. Well, Ramdas, you can share something if you want. I see Ramdas is here. She just came back also.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Well, actually, it was my first time in the Youth Sangha, but I think it was really fun. And Swami Keshava was always there, and he was very helpful with everything. It was like having like a big brother or something. I think I liked the program because it was like diverse, and we had a lot of classes, but it was nice to attend. It wasn't like boring or, oh, we have to go through this and stuff. And I know I had a good time because I wasn't thinking about when it's time to eat. I know it was nice. And yeah, I can say I learned so many things because too much information, but I think I got something more important than just knowledge. And that is the motivation to actually start doing things and learning more and reading and participating, nice. Saving up for courses. And I think everyone was a very nice personality and that we got along really well. So even if Guruji wasn't there, it was still 100% worth it, at least for me. Yeah, I just wish we had more. That's the only thing I can complain about. Yeah, and yeah, being now back home, it's nice because I still have the Ashram energy, but at the same time, it's not nice because I feel lonely, like not having 3 other alarms ringing up at the same time, and everyone just keeps pushing the snooze button, yes, and having to hear like 15 alarms every day. I miss that also. And you know, Swami Keshava, look at this face. I mean, how can you not miss it?
I know.
Sometimes.
Well, you can put 15 alarms on your phone. I think there's no problem.
Yeah, it's not the same. Like hearing the other girls like moaning on the sleep and try to convince each other to get up for Bhutabhrteshwarnath Namaskar, and everyone just
nobody actually
in the end. Yeah. But yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, I only hoped that I had discovered about this when I was younger, like 4 years ago when I met Guruji 5 years ago. So I had went to all the other sanghas. But yeah, it's a good thing that I look like younger than I am, so I can go more years and then people find out.
They're not that strict, huh?
Yeah, they're not that strict.
Officially, it's until 26.
Officially.
Guruji has to make an exception otherwise. But yeah, for me, the Youth Sangha is always one of the best events of the year, even if it is the only event in the year that really makes me feel old. But and I'm 29 already, but you know, everybody, like there's even some guys who are literally half my age, which is kind of funny. But it's amazing to spend time with all of these guys and to I don't want to say it in like, obviously it's nice to spend time with everybody and like all the devotees, but for me it's always because I've always been around devotees that are well older than me, or at least the same age or older than me. Some I haven't really had like I've missed a big part of that age because I've always had to try to be an adult in some sense, right? To match adult and right, and some for me it's always super fun to spend time with them, and for me it's just amazing to see how much they enjoy to find out about the path, find themselves also, and grow in that group also, and to grow, especially the ones that I see every year. It's amazing to see their growth and how they change over every year growing. And it's amazing to see the group of young people growing together. And because I think if you're in that age, I think you share and you open up and you spend time and speak with each other differently than if you're amongst devotees of different age, right? I think it's a different vibe, a different energy, a different openness to each other somehow. And so that's something that I feel a lot every year, and it's really enjoyable. And of course, it's sometimes a bit challenging to really create a plan or a retreat, because it's a huge difference actually between officially 16 to 26, but actually like every year there's somebody 12, 13, 11 joining that Guruji asked them to come. So it's actually like at an age range between 11 and 26, which is actually quite between guys who are completely new, between first time for Summer Sangha. Some people are devotees for many years already. Some have been coming for many years. So it's amazing to try to get like a schedule together that everybody will enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody will learn something. It's not just about fun, obviously. It's about, obviously, Guruji wants them to learn and to find out about him and the path and the Bhagavatam and Leelas and Gita and everything that Guruji does.
Well, and also for that age group to not be distracted by mundane things, right? To learn at a young age that this is a wild, spectacular world, right? And that the Guru knows, he knows who he's looking for. He knew he was looking for you, right? Like to spot these kids, and it's like, there he is. I was wondering when he was coming.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think, kids feel that. They feel that the specialness of it, that this isn't just some teacher you run into at school. This is someone who really loves you.
Yeah. Can show you things that nobody else can show you.
Right.
Can protect you in a way that nobody else can protect you.
And that's the big thing, because the world is feeling more and more unsafe for people who don't have this kind of grounding. And for Guruji to be sending these lights back out into the world, right, who can maybe calm down their schoolmates or, say something that will shift somebody in an unexpected way. That's really brilliant.
Yeah.
Om Devaki Nandanaya Vitmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Krishna Prachodayat.